This is a Disaster Central Special Report. My name is David Vela, covering now a special report 7.8 earthquake has struck the Philippines. Let me just correct these really quick. My name is David Vela here in the broadcast studio from Houston, Texas, here joined by Mike,
All right,
Roman,
here we go.
Lily, and Beaton. Uh,
Okay.
how are we doing?
Hi.
Good.
Um, well, so far it seems like this earthquake is hitting in the exact same region as the 7.6 that hit on December 2nd of last year. And this earthquake also seems ever so slightly shallow. But there is talk that it could be an aftershock of that 7.6 on December 2nd.
Just go over the facts. While that happens, this
So,
earthquake, according to Global Quake, was a magnitude 7.0. The USGS has it as a 6.8, and it likely is anywhere from a 6.8 to a 7.1. Around 73.9 kilometers deep. The USGS has this 17.8 kilometers deep. However, they probably will revise this going into the future. Now, in terms of whether or not there's a tsunami threat, probably not. And if there is, it's going to be a very, very small wave. So
yeah.
this earthquake,
I mean, earthquakes in this region aren't generally tsunamigenic. The 7.61 generated a tsunami that was at most 2 feet tall. And this one, if it does generate a wave, will most likely be around the same size.
yeah. So this earthquake
Also,
has
I
been
like to point.
felt.
Oh,
Sorry, I just wanted to say something. This earthquake has been felt by around
mhm.
30 million people and has probably been
I
heavily
was gonna
felt
say that.
by about 1.7 to 2 million people. Well, folks, this is going to be continuous coverage. Obviously, we are uh, in the middle. Obviously, this is a emergency setup, and we'll be revising this in the coming hours. So just stand by for changes that are made to this. I do just want to break in and say that this earthquake I think this earthquake just happened like 10 minutes ago. So,
Yes.
uh,
Mhm.
there's not much footage out yet. I do want to warn you that there probably, not probably, but likely will be uh, aftershocks. Whether they are strong aftershocks, that's going to be in the question. But their aftershocks are likely, and as a result, anybody who is in Mindanao or in the southern islands or the northern islands north of Mindanao should be paying attention because there's a possibility that that the aftershocks could be strong as well. Uh,
Yes.
so
Uh,
folks, yeah,
as as stated earlier, a big concern right now is the risk of a tsunami. Um, Generally, when an offshore earthquake happens, that is the biggest fear, regardless of depth, magnitude, something like that. Uh, the depth has been ranging quite a bit for uh uh the depth has been ranging quite a bit depending on which agency you ask. I'm seeing right now that there are water fluctuations up to zero point 0.4 meters, so 40 centimeters, which isn't really a lot. It's nothing to be too concerned about. Small surges. The Philippines have had earthquakes on the smaller size generate larger tsunamis. In 2012, there was an earthquake in Negros Island that generated an underwater landslide that caused a tsunami up to 16 feet. However, the Negros earthquake was much shallower than this earthquake appears to be, so much less violent. However, it is still strongly felt by over 1 million people. However, the risk of a large tsunami is, at this point, extremely unlikely.
and that is good news. Anybody else wants to put in further comments? I'm still trying to correct some of the setup here. So if you
Not
guys,
What
really.
does
Other than that, there's been direct reports that in like other surrounding cities, like even on the very southern tip of this island, they're still around intensity 4 to 3, like around like. But
in
yeah,
like Davao,
yeah, around there.
which is, I believe, the second largest city in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
Intensity 4 to 3, which is enough to be feelable, but not really enough to cause damage.
Yeah,
Um,
that just shows you the extent of this earthquake, really.
yes. Let's see. What is earthquake in Tagalog? English.
So yeah, we're waiting more information as things come available. Uh, so I mean, if you do have any questions, comments, concerns, them and just type them in the chat. Uh, Obviously we'll be live for a few hours at least, and more likely than not, this stream will continue to last. I think. Never mind, it's not a new aftershock. That is a Texas earthquake. Uh, of course, with all massive earthquakes, of course, this year has been a bit quiet in terms of earthquake activity, with the last major one being in Chile. Although I think that one was downgraded, maybe.
Yeah.
Uh,
That was a 7.4 in the Atacama region of
It was
Chile.
deep.
It
It was
was,
pretty deep.
yes, but it was still enough to be MMI 7, which is enough
Oh
to be
yeah,
damaging.
it's crazy
Um,
how powerful that earthquake was, though, for how deep it was and yet how strong it was. This earthquake being 6.8 for now that we know of. So,
but that can still
but
cause a lot of damage. The earthquake in Mindanao, that was pretty
oh yeah,
damaging, and General Santos City in Davao was a 6.7, but that earthquake was also much shallower. So it isn't just the magnitude you have to, it's how deep in the Earth's crust it is. Shallower earthquakes can generally be more intense, which is what can make even small earthquakes dangerous. Like there was a 5.6 in Indonesia in 2022, but that killed 300 to 600 people because of how shallow it was and therefore how intense the shaking was.
mm,
New
yeah.
maybe? No, it's not new. Okay, okay. So another thing with this program we're using, unfortunately, there's not many stations in the Philippines, I think, right? Or is that just me?
Yeah, that has
No,
access
it's
to.
not.
Well, there's plenty, but the thing is that it
Philippines-
doesn't have access to those.
Yeah, I believe they have their own program.
Okay, so yeah. So we don't have access to a lot of the Filipino stations. What I can tell you is that from for at
Oh,
least from what people and at least from the footage, uh, at least from some videos, and according to the USGS as well, I can confirm that that at max there has been at least intensity 4 and 5 shakings. Uh, Now to the extent of where these recordings
But
are,
estimated up to 6 and 7. Uh, estimated up to 6
the
and 7
the
from what I've
sorry,
seen.
the version that has all these stations says 6.5, but it's continuing to be revised, so this still could change. Could change a lot, actually.
I mean this again this is
Wait,
one of the
it's not
more I mean let's just put this into a more detail. So we were expecting, and I think that's another earthquake. I don't know where that is, but we were we were expecting. I mean, I was at least expecting an earthquake to strike soon. Now, not in the Philippines. I wasn't expecting the Philippines to blow up. Just want to ask a question. Do you guys think this could be potentially related to the December 7.6? Was it a
it's in the
7.6?
exact location.
It's in the exact same place, so it's a pretty fair bet that it is an aftershock. However, it still needs to be revised by or reviewed by geologists. But it's in the same area as the rupture of the 7.6. I actually found a live camera from Davao, which shows the moment the earthquake hit in the city. Luckily, it doesn't look too intense. Yeah, no, it's causing everything in the building to sway. Though, I'll send it over.
Yeah, I'm not gonna really put it
Yeah,
on
the
because I'm not trying to risk that. I do want to just say to the people who are joining in, for those who are joining in, a very decently sized 6.8 earthquake has struck the Philippines. Uh, Now the estimated ranges go from 6.8 to 7.1. I do want to quickly bring up that in terms of the tsunami threat, these type of earthquakes do not produce a tsunami, and you can see that's just been archived. We are now awaiting stations, or a station. We're now awaiting aftershocks now. So, yeah, we are awaiting an aftershock. Aftershocks to begin. You will not see uh the earthquake has been archived. Now, in terms of what the economic cost and what the fatalities could look like, I cannot tell you. From what I've seen in terms of the estimated damage ranges, or shaking estimations, we've seen anywhere from a 7 to an 8 at max. But in general, a general rule of thumb is that with these type of earthquakes in Mindanao, you will see at least intensities 4 or 5, and more localized areas could be stronger. Yes, Mike, want to say anything?
Um,
Or
Give me a second. Let me turn on noise suppression. Okay. So I did want to say that with aftershocks, what the general rule of thumb is, you for to measure the next potential aftershock magnitude size. What you basically do is you take the magnitude of the main shock, which is 6.8, and you subtract it by 1.3, and you get 5.5. So the next aftershock will probably be around magnitude 5.5, based on that rule of thumb.
okay, yeah.
mm,
So now, unless this earthquake, which I'm gonna highly unlikely that it is, but unless this earthquake is a foreshock, uh, a general rule of thumb is that the aftershocks will always be weaker than the main shock. So we could be talking, as Mike has said, a 5.5. You said,
Yeah.
5.5. So we are pretty much awaiting that. Now there is also a 48-hour period in a lot of these big earthquakes, or at least decently sized earthquakes, especially with magnitudes of this size, 6.8. There is a 48-hour, I think it was a 48 to 70-hour period, 72-hour period. But essentially, what this dictates is that within anywhere of these 48 to 72 hours, if there is a foreshock, the stronger earthquake should happen either now or the next 3 days. So we're also going to be paying attention to that. Now, if this doesn't happen, if it doesn't happen, then this is probably now an aftershock, and now we have to wait for these aftershocks. So there's a lot that goes into this earthquake scene, and okay, who left? There's a lot that goes on into this earthquake scene, and one of the problems is that we don't have the stations for it. So that's one problem. We just don't have a station for let's okay, never mind. We don't have the stations to detect all of these aftershocks. So that's gonna be very hard. But the next thing is, and the next problem is, we don't know whether or not this is an aftershock or there will be a foreshock. In my opinion, and I think in a lot of our team's opinion, I think we can all agree that this is likely an aftershock, and I think now the seismos are picking something up, because it just went green, so we might be seeing
as
an aftershock as we speak. What do
as
you think?
far as human impact goes, the much larger 7.6 in December killed 3 people, and this is a smaller quake, and also it seems a less intense quake. So it is possible that the human impact will not quite be as much, just based on previous earthquakes in this exact region. So the area that this earthquake is pretty much the exact same place as that 7.6 on December 2nd. So it is unlikely that the human impact on life, damage, property, uh, injuries, etc., would be much greater than the 7.6, which would be more intense. Um,
Yeah, just monitoring this seismo near Davao. I think that's the city, Davao. Uh, just
yeah,
monitoring it
yeah,
because
that's Davao.
there's a massive delay on
Actually,
this
that's
one.
generative.
There's a massive delay on this one. I
That
can't really tell if there's an
Also, you
aftershock
should
mm,
or
probably
not.
monitoring some lives as well.
hmm
And
Yeah, just let
that
us know
might
if there's an
be General
aftershock ongoing
Santos or
as we speak, because and for those who are
wait, yeah,
watching
that's
in the Philippines, in Mindanao,
it
or
looks
in
like there
the
might have been
northern,
a small one.
yeah, I saw the seismo pick that up. But if there is anybody watching in Mindanao or in the northern islands of Mindanao, north of Mindanao, that's a new earthquake. I don't know which one that is, but uh, is that another one? Which one is that?
It's Western Texas.
Oh, okay. So
Um,
just the general rule of thumb is you should be expecting aftershocks. So that's pretty much why we're live. We are now awaiting aftershocks, and pretty much to keep you informed of this whole ordeal. Again, for those who are tuning in, by the way, a massive 7.0 earthquake, 6.8 to 7.1. There's very clashing sources that are clashing in estimates, but
the
6.8 to
depth. The
oh,
depth was revised by USGS to 25.8 kilometers deep.
that
okay,
could be a small aftershock going on.
okay,
I can't
so
tell. It's such slow swing.
okay, so yeah, uh, so yes, okay, so yeah, we could be potentially seeing an aftershock as we speak, and as Lily did point out, in terms of the human impacts, we are more likely to see less fatalities. However, I will say that another thing about this is that it is morning time, and a lot of people are in their homes and are awake or just waking up. So that's another concern we do have, because at least with uh, December, this earthquake was like at evening to nighttime hours.
It was like the middle of the night, I believe. Hold up, let me check. 7.6, no.
Yeah,
Um,
where is
it was at 10, it was shortly after 10:30 p.m. local time.
Okay, so yeah, so uh, that's another thing. These earthquakes that are happening, this earthquake that did just strike, happened happened at around 7 in the morning. Now really like six something. But
6:30,
6:30.
shortly before 6:30.
So people are just waking up, and that's another concern. A lot of people are waking up and they're not really attentive. So that's another contributing factor to that's another factor to the humanitarian damage, or at least to the human side of this damage and destruction. Now, I can't really tell you there's been destruction or damage. I would place my bets that there are. Now, to the extent of how bad the damage, I couldn't tell you. Uh,
Based on the shaking intensity and the magnitude, it's likely there's going to be cracks in walls, but I doubt you're going to see partial or complete collapses like you would in like the Mindanao earthquake on the 17th of November, which was shallow and it hit under a major city. It's unlikely something like that's going to happen. It's likely it's going to be more cracks in walls or cracks in buildings, maybe sidewalks, roads, but not collapses.
Go ahead, Roman.
me? Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't gonna say anything.
Oh, okay.
I'm just changing the description.
Latest. What is the latest on Twitter? Okay, I don't see too
Okay, so yeah,
much.
for those who are tuning in, a 6.8 to 7.1 has struck portions of the Philippines. We are awaiting aftershocks, uh, and this coverage will continue on for at least a few more hours. And that's one thing to be noticing. Now, in terms of, we've already talked about the humanitarian aspect. We've already talked about uh, the damage side. Now, in terms of what this means for the future of these earthquakes, I personally have a sneaking suspicion that uh, this is, I mean, I just feel like, again, and part of the reasoning for this is that we've been, like, just in general, and I think our contributors can agree, this year has been really, really quiet in terms of,
Yes,
and I mean, it's not even the
only
first
like
year. Like, this has been a multi-year thing where we've seen more, less than, like, below the normal uh sevens and sixes, and this all happened after the extremely active 2021. And if you guys do remember that one, there was like two
there were
8.0s,
three.
three 8.0s,
Three.
and
There
like,
was one
Yeah.
in the Kermadec Islands, one in Alaska, and one in the South Sandwich Islands.
yeah. So I guess the question is, could this potentially be a sign that maybe Earth is waking up, or is this just normal activity?
Um, well, there have been recently, what, 4 sevens in the past, like, 2 months,
Hmm.
which is a good amount. So far, they've fortunately all been deep, so the human impact has been relatively low. Only one earthquake caused a fatality. That was the 7.4 in Chile, and I believe that was related to medical emergency, but it is quite rare in like just recent geological history for there to be 3 years solid without an 8. And unfortunately, when there is that sort of gap, it does open the possibility for an even larger or more destructive earthquake. Now, obviously, we have had destructive earthquakes recently. There was the earthquake in Taiwan, 18 dead, and
7.6.
yeah, 7.4, I believe.
Yeah.
The 7.4 to 7.6 based on who you ask. Um, but collapsed buildings in Hualien. Fortunately, Taiwanese people are very prepared for that. More tragically, the earthquake in the Noto Peninsula on January 1st that killed 299 people and left 3 more dead and generated a major tsunami. But last year, I feel like it goes without saying, the absolutely catastrophic Turkey-Syria earthquakes. So there have been events, but it just seems like they've been few and far between, which is concerning as far as future events go. Because
Yeah,
Yeah, to be honest, I
because,
really wouldn't doubt if we see like next year. Take this with a grain of salt, guys. But
like an 8 point.
like we could see beyond like an 8.5 next year because with this kind of
well,
pattern that goes on,
yeah,
like
well,
that is yeah. Go on.
no, go ahead, go ahead. Because I was going to say it, and I was going to mention that I think the problem with saying maybe
Mhm.
the problem, and this is not necessarily like, and again, of course, the term I use, uh, and the way that I see it, I mean, I use through a meteorological perspective, and obviously this is not meteorological in nature. This is obviously more geological. Uh, but what I will say is, uh, I mean, it doesn't really take someone with a PhD to realize that, inactivity in terms of earthquakes is really bad in terms of the future. Uh, I read this post out from a friend that sent it to me, and they were like saying that, there's going to be uh, yeah, and if there's not a big earthquake, and we placed bets on it because that's what we do. Uh, but like we placed bets, and something that really caught my attention was, and it was, uh, he said something along the lines of, if we don't see and this was back last year, if we don't see a 8.0 this year, which was 2023, we're gonna see, or next year, we could see anywhere from an 8.4 to an 8.6. Now, take that with a grain of salt. I personally think that this activity will begin to shoot up, partly because we're entering, partly because, I mean, this is just unnatural. Uh,
Yeah.
and This is just unnatural.
Yeah,
And
areas
I mean,
go
this
in
is
and out of
just, yeah. And this is just not normal. So, uh,
Yeah, there are areas that go in and out of activity, and just combining them all together, because I mean, obviously certain areas are very prone to geological activity, Chile, Japan, Indonesia, but there are like certain, especially like certain fault lines that go in and out of activity. I can give you one from each. The um offshore subduction zone offshore of Sumatra that generated the December 26, 2004 earthquake, and then multiple other megathrust earthquakes after that, didn't have a decent earthquake since 1907 before 2004. And then 2004 happened, it was a 9.1 to 9.3. The year after 2005, there was an 8.6 further south, 2007, 8.4 near Bengkulu. Um, I believe there was, hold up, how big was Padang? There was an earthquake in 2009, but I don't know if it was on that
I
subduction
think it
zone.
was
But
like a 7.9 or 8.1.
yes, Padang 2009. But even Japan, the offshore subduction zone area went quiet, and then there was the 2003 Tokachi earthquake, and then the 2011 Tohoku. Chile, there was an area of that subduction zone that went quiet after Valdivia, and then 2010 8.8 Maule, and then
I'll be back.
2014 northern Chile, and then 2015 off of Coquimbo. So these areas can like rapid fire megathrusts and then go pretty quiet.
But I mean,
But
the
it seems
argument could be
a lot
made
of
that in
go
terms of
quiet.
Chile, the reason why inactivity was there is because, I mean, all that activity was used up for that massive 9.5 earthquake. Let's not forget the day after or the day before, one of those days or the week before, there
There was
was
an
like an
8.3,
8.8 according to USGS.
8.8. Hello.
Uh, that
I
was
don't.
according to the
How
USGS's maybe there was an
big
aftershock,
was?
but
Okay. The Padang earthquake was also offshore of Sumatra, and it was a 7.6. There was also a 7.7 off of Mentawai in 2010. So these areas get pretty active.
okay, so uh I mean, the argument could be made that in terms of the reason why we saw inactivity in Chile is because we saw huge activity back in the 60s. And because, and again, I mean, it doesn't take a PhD to tell you this, but when you see inactivity along a fault, all that energy and pressure is building up, and it's bound to break up and or release it. And that's part of the reason why, as dark as this is, you would rather see a big earthquake now than see it years later. Why? Because the longer a big earthquake scenario takes, the more likely it is that we're going to see it, begin to, uh, the more likely it is that we're going
Okay,
to begin to
sorry,
see,
David, to interrupt you, but did you discuss the possibility of this producing a tsunami?
yes,
Okay. And did you discuss any news? Is there any breaking news regarding this earthquake or not?
and not much. Yeah, there's not much.
All right. Well, I did want to say, yeah. So basically, this probably, like, I'm pretty sure David already said, this probably will not cause a big tsunami or any tsunami for that matter because of the both the depth, it's a little bit too deep, and on top of that, it's that part of that kind of fault that the earthquake happened on doesn't usually create significant tsunamis.
Ooh, we could see an aftershock.
And also the 6.8 is a 6.8 is considered a little too small to create a tsunami. So, from what I see on the shake map, it looks like Bislig. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, apologies. But it looks like Bislig around Bislig got the most strong shaking because the shake map shows MMI 7. And MMI 7 is severe. I'm sorry, not severe. Very strong shaking, and very strong shaking will typically damage. It will typically cause moderate to severe damage to non-earthquake proof buildings, such as fallen walls. Fallen walls are possible. Huge cracks in plaster and in the wall, that's possible too. At an MMI 7, that's usually when, if you're in a car, MMI 7 is when you start to actually feel it while driving, because the earthquake is strong enough to shake the car while you're still driving it. But in earthquake reinforced buildings, you will typically see little damage from a 7. Probably some minor cracks, maybe some fallen plaster a little bit, but a well-designed building should not sustain severe damage and should not collapse in a MMI 7 earthquake. Let's see. I do want to say I know for the Filipinos that earthquakes, I understand, they're very scary, and the Philippines has a huge history of very deadly earthquakes with devastating consequences, and I know that will get to your head, and when you feel an earthquake, and it'll be the driving force for you to run out of the building. But trust me when I say that you have a higher likelihood, statistically, you have a higher likelihood of surviving an earthquake if you are taking shelter underneath something sturdy like a table, or like something that is hollow, like a space underneath something, basically a desk, I guess even a bed, um, just something that has space underneath it, and if it's sturdy enough, if you think it's sturdy enough, that will probably be your best chance. Because running outside, obviously, like running outside causes debris. I'm sorry, like when you run outside, basically, and there's debris falling, the debris can obviously hit you in the head. It can obviously crush you. It can obviously do all this kind of stuff. And you might think it's worth the risk, but it's not, because if that piece of debris hits you, this kind of debris, when it hits you, it will cause big trauma to the head, trauma to your brain. It could knock you out, and that's the best case scenario, knocking you out. Worst case scenario, your head is crushed and you die instantly because of brain trauma. And if the pieces are big enough, they will literally just crush you. So your best bet is to stay inside the building, because even if the building collapses, the likelihood of that desk or table holding the weight of a portion of that building, it's pretty high. Like, you will be surprised at how many instances there are of earthquakes where the building has collapsed, but there are tables or beds that are holding up pieces of the building, and it creates these gaps where survival is a possibility. So please, I know earthquakes are scary, but you statistically have a higher likelihood of surviving if you take shelter underneath a table or a desk or a bed. Um,
I do have
that being said,
sorry
I'm
to
sorry.
interrupt. I have breaking news. Uh, we can now confirm, and this was already hinted by Global Quake. It's just there's not enough seismos to confirm it. We can already confirm that there has been at least a 5.3 aftershock that has struck Barcelona, Mindanao, in the Philippines. At least in terms of what the reports are saying in there. Another thing that has been expressed in terms of concern is liquefaction. And according to the USGS, another thing in terms of breaking news, uh, the USGS now expects that there will now expects little to no area affected by landslides. In terms of liquefaction, the USGS is expecting significant areas to be exposed, extensive populations to be exposed to liquefaction, which is not a very good. It's not a good news at all. Uh, so that is the breaking news. The USGS has now confirmed a 7 point, or not, well, not confirmed. It's confirmed a 5.3 aftershock that has struck near Mindanao, or not, yeah, on Mindanao, near Barcelona, uh, and also has now confirmed that the landslide risks now poses little risk to populations. However, the liquefaction risk is now being exposed to an extensive population. So that is the breaking news.
All right. In liquefaction, for those who don't know, liquefaction is basically when the I don't know I can't explain the exact science behind it, but it basically is when the ground becomes fluid-like, basically. And that is very problematic in the sense that if there are any kind of buildings over the soil and it liquefies and liquefaction occurs, the structure of that building will be compromised. It will obviously there will be no more equal distribution of force from that building on the soil, and obviously when a lot of tension will be put on one part of the building, and then that will cause it to uh, collapse, sustain damage. So,
Hmm.
and obviously that's it's very problematic for people who are inside of that building. So um, in terms of liquefaction, I can't really say anything about how to survive it because I don't know if there are any survival guides on how to survive liquefaction. But basically, the what you should do, and if you are ever faced with liquefaction, the best thing that you should probably do is to just either run away, is what I could say. Just run away if you are able to, and if you're caught in it, honestly treat it like a tsunami and try to like climb on top of something like a tree or something if possible. Um, there's also different kinds of liquefaction. Like there's liquefaction where there are like sand boils where water comes out of the ground. And then there's liquefaction where like I said, the soil literally turns into water. Like a good example of that is Palu in 2018. Uh, a portion of the city, sorry, it suffered liquefaction and it literally behaved like a separate tsunami. Like the dirt literally transformed into its own tsunami. It like basically washed away homes, washed away everything in its path. So yeah, it's pretty. It can be pretty catastrophic for liquefaction to happen. And then obviously there's another factor that we should keep in mind: the fact that this area is very mountainous. Eastern Mindanao is pretty mountainous, so another thing that people should watch out for, obviously, are landslides and rock slides. Um, Landslides, yeah, they can also be pretty. They can also cause severe building damage, and rock slides, yeah, basically the same. Um, Honestly, I haven't really heard of any news of anything like that of liquefaction or rock slides or landslides happening. So I guess in that sense it's pretty good, although it's still kind of early. So I guess we should wait and see. But I have not seen any videos of liquefaction or rock slides happening from this earthquake.
Yeah, and
Um,
for those who are tuning in, and by the way, the tickers are updating, so it might take a little bit for the tickers. It looks like they've already updated. So the tickers have begun to update. So that's the breaking news. So for those who are now tuning in, a 7.0 has struck Mindanao. Now the actual estimate goes from 6.8 to 7.1. We're going with the 7.0 because it's the median out of the two. Uh, there has been strong shaking reported in portions of Mindanao, and an update now that the breaking news now was that a 5.3 aftershock has struck Mindanao. This was near Barcelona. And another thing is that liquefaction, according to the USGS, is now posing a catastrophic threat to structure and life. Uh, so that is a big, 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 big concern to be worried about. So just keep that in mind. That is the breaking news. Uh, this is Disaster Central entering now continuous coverage of the 7.0 earthquake in the Philippines. And we are now just pretty much awaiting for just more news to come out. If you do have any questions, comments, concerns, I would recommend you send them in the chat where I can answer them. But from a
I mean,
part,
from what I see so far, there's not a lot of news regarding um, like any terms of severe damage or anything. I haven't seen anything. Then again, I haven't specifically looked in the area of Bislig or however you pronounce it, so maybe I should look there. But so far, I have not seen anything very, very bad from this earthquake so far. So I believe maybe we are. I believe, and hopefully I'm right, that it hasn't really caused any terms of severe impact, or it hasn't caused any severe impact. So
yeah. So hopefully that's the case. Uh, of course, we're gonna have to wait out and see how this will look like. Um, and do we have? Okay. So yeah, I just want to bring out for the American viewers a now an earthquake. Who joined? Okay. Uh,
my Wi-Fi kind of died. Sorry.
okay. That's fine. By the way, this is a bit unrelated, but there's been now an earthquake, a decently sized earthquake, well, decently sized for American terminology, but a small earthquake that has struck the greater Los Angeles area. I don't know exactly what the estimate of that is, but
It's probably small.
yeah, it looks small. That is a 2.7, yeah, pretty small. You are watching, this is Disaster Central covering now, continuous coverage of the earthquake hitting the Philippines. Uh, as we continue to pretty much now await aftershocks to continue. So that is pretty much now what we are rating on. We are expecting in about a few minutes to take a break because food has just arrived at the house, so I have to eat up really quick. Unless Mike, you want to take over and discuss more about the earthquake. Um, but
Yeah, I can
I'll
do that.
Okay, so yeah, so in about 7 minutes, I will be transitioning off. Mike will be, who is the person who was talking before. Mike will be on the commentary side, explaining a lot, and pretty much going into I guess, the sciences behind the earthquake and what this could potentially look like in the future for this, just in general. I do want to ask Mike this question because we did see Roman and Lily debate about this earlier, but I do want to pose a question to you, and this is pretty much so. Just in general, this year and last year and the year before has generally been uh, inactive in terms of earthquakes. Uh, and nonetheless, we still have seen catastrophic earthquakes that have hit uh, portions of uh, the world. Of course, last year, very reminiscent, uh, the Turkey-Syria earthquakes that killed 53,000 people. Uh, that is another, that was a huge, huge, huge earthquake. That was a sequence. In 2022, what did we have? Can't recall. I think there was a Mexico earthquake in 2022. Uh,
Yeah.
in 2023, of course, we had more destructive earthquakes. We had the Noto Peninsula earthquake that did kill 299 people. And also did produce a major tsunami. And obviously we did have the 7.4 in Taiwan that killed 18. Oh wait, we have an aftershock. Global quake just picked up on it. Now in terms of how strong this is, I don't know how strong this is. But we do have a decently sized aftershock. It looks pretty decently sized. We're gonna be waiting for that notification to come out, unless it won't show off, which it probably won't because these stations are delayed, which is sad. It actually looks like, yeah, it's delayed again. Looks like a decently sized earthquake. Okay, so yeah, we do have an aftershock there. So the question I was gonna say is, now with this earthquake, obviously now being one of the more destructive ones, we did see in July, uh, I guess a sequence of 4 7s. Of course, they were all deep except for this one. Do you think this could potentially be the sign or the start of maybe an increase or uptick in activity in terms of geological physics?
Um, in my opinion, I don't know if we could really make such an estimate, or I'm sorry, we can make such a guess based off of this. I would say it's possible because there have been times where it's been dead quiet, and then once a big earthquake happens, there seems to be a quick little peak in activity that happens within the next few days slash week, one like a week and a half. Um, but of course, there have also been times where after a big earthquake, the activity goes back down super quick and is back to a quiet period. So I would say it really just depends. It depends. It could either be super active after this for a short amount of time, or it could be dead quiet again. Based on the trends that have been happening the past few months, it's possible that it just gets quiet again, just based on the trends that have been happening recently. But it's also possible there could be an uptick in activity as well after this. It really just depends.
Okay. Yeah, we were asking that because there was pretty much a debate, and one of the points that was made is, uh, just in general, this sequence of years where we don't see an 8.0, it's just unheard of and not normal. And I can't really make a claim like this because I'm not necessarily informed on the topic. And just in general, you can't really make predictions on earthquakes, believe it or not. Uh,
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
uh, you can't really predict earthquake intensities and when they're going to happen because they're really unpredictable. But I guess you can use historical records to at least make some sort of assumption, some sort of educated guess on, potentially not necessarily when and where, but maybe what the intensity could look like, or maybe give you an idea of how things could play out in the future. And in my personal opinion, while I'm not necessarily well informed on it, I do think that I do think that something that does, catch my attention per se is that, I mean, again, this is some of the more unusual earthquakes years. I mean, we did come off from 2021, which is super active, three 8.0s and a ton of sevens, and after that, it's been really quiet in terms of eights. So I can't really say that I can't really confirm there's gonna be a big earthquake. But what I am saying and what I am suggesting at is, or hinting at, is that we could potentially see an uptick in activity. Now, in terms of, how this activity will look like, I can't really tell you. Uh, I think that, well, more likely than not, where this is gonna happen, I can't really tell you. In terms of how strong it's gonna be like, I can't really tell you. But I think that maybe Earth is beginning to wake up, just basing it on the fact that this month's earthquake sequence, these last 4 weeks of earthquake sequences, uh, I mean, it has involved four magnitude sevens, uh, or 4 3. magnitude 7s. Of course, they've all been pretty deep, except for this one, which has been a little bit shallow. Uh, but this one is looking more likely than not that it is a 6.8. Uh, but I can't really give an estimate of what things could look like, but I think that it's very possible. Not probable, but possible. We do see an earthquake, in earthquake sequence, an earthquake activity shift uh, in the long run, and I think that's definitely something that's in the cards. Uh, but again, I mean, you can't really predict these. You cannot really predict how things will look like in the future. Uh, what you can do is prepare.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Basically all you can really do is just prepare for. You should always have a plan in place anyway, in case of an earthquake happens in your area anyway. So, um, what I would recommend is preparing like an earthquake kit. I think that's one of the best ways to prepare for an earthquake. Um, and if possible, place it. I would place it in like the bedroom or something like that, just like underneath the bed or something. Um, and yes, basically, you for an earthquake kit, you should just um place stuff into it like water and a radio, uh, first aid kit, um, stuff like that. I mean, you can always look on Google too for more information, but that's what I would recommend because you never know what could happen. Your building could collapse on top of you, and you could be trapped for multiple days, even weeks. I mean, it's happened before you're rescued. I mean, just look at what happened in, for example, the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. There were so many people trapped underneath the debris, and it was the dead of night in the wintertime during a raging uh, winter storm. So these people ended up, a lot of these people ended up freezing to death because of the weather. A lot of them, I would say a good few of them probably died from dehydration.
I'm
Others
gonna be
died.
right back.
Okay. Others died probably from starvation as well. So that's what I'm saying. Like the best thing for you to do for is to prepare an earthquake kit and water, maybe some non-perishable food items as well. First aid in case something happens. I mean, after all, a heap of building material collapsing on top of you probably will injure you in some way, shape, or form. Um, so it's the best thing to do is to just prepare an earthquake kit in case something were to happen. Um, and I would also take the time to see how well your building that you're in is built, how well it's built in terms of building material, when it was built. Um, preferably something after, I would say, preferably something after 1980 if you're in the US. In any other country, I would say anything built after probably 2000 to 2010, I would say is probably the best. It really depends because a lot of countries, uphold these kinds of rules in terms of building quality and building material and stuff like that. Others don't. Um, Japan, obviously, amazing building, amazing building material, amazing building regulations in place is the word I was looking for. Yeah, Japan, amazing, but you have other countries like Haiti or Turkey, I would even say. Haiti, Turkey, Indonesia, um, even the Philippines. A lot of buildings are just not built very well, and so I would take the time to see what kind of building you are living in. Building quality when it was built, stuff like that. Um, in addition to that, I would say that if there's a tsunami, if there's an earthquake that has the potential to create a tsunami, the best thing to do would be to have a tsunami evacuation plan created as well, just for your own safety. Um, so I mean, a lot of people you would be surprised at how many areas are susceptible to tsunamis, and you know, a lot of these tsunamis that I've seen personally from other kinds of earthquakes, they can be super fast. Like we're talking about Palu, 2018, 7.5 happened. It hit the city of Palu in Indonesia on Sulawesi Island. The tsunami arrived within 1 to 2 minutes. I mean, that is something that is just incredibly scary. You have a massive surge of water approaching in 1 to 2 minutes. That's how fast a tsunami can hit. It depends on where the source for creating that tsunami happens, how close to land it is. In case of a megathrust, it might be dozens of miles offshore. In terms of Palu, which was a strike slip, there could be coastal landslides or underwater landslides that happened right there in that bay. So it really depends. But what I would basically say is, I think the rule of thumb that one geologist or one tsunami expert said was that if you feel shaking, if you feel very strong shaking for more than, I believe it was more than 20 seconds, if you feel very strong shaking for more than 20 seconds, you need to get away from the shorelines, away from the coastline, because it's possible that a tsunami could happen. Um, and of course, when it comes to tsunamis, you should know, uh, you should basically be evacuating um, as soon as the earthquake happens. Or, I'm sorry, as soon as the earthquake stops happening, you should immediately be evacuating. Um, like I said, they can arrive as soon as 1 to 2 minutes, and you should try to practice evacuating if you are in a zone where a tsunami can happen. I know it sounds dumb, and you might think that, oh, something like this cannot happen to me, possibly, but it's really good to try to, basically just plan out what you would do in that situation. Places like the North Pacific Northwest in the U.S., New Zealand, even the Philippines. A lot of Filipinos don't really know, but there's a trench off the coast of Western Luzon, and it goes from Western Luzon to South Taiwan. It kind of curves to the east and then upwards towards southern Taiwan. It's called the Manila Trench, and that trench, believe it or not, has the capability of a magnitude up to a magnitude 9. And you wouldn't expect it, obviously. Like, there hasn't been a big earthquake in that area for a while, and you wouldn't expect a tsunami to happen there. You wouldn't expect even a big earthquake to happen there. So that's what I'm saying. You should basically prepare uh, a worst case situation in terms of an earthquake happening or a tsunami happening. You like for a tsunami, you should plan where you would be evacuating. Obviously, the best course of action is to evacuate upwards into the mountains, or a reinforced concrete building, like a big one. Um, in terms of like during the 2011 Japan earthquake, um, a lot of reinforced concrete buildings that are quite big, they survived the waves because it, even such big buildings are able to withstand the forces of a tsunami, or they're able to more easily, I should say. Um, and so if there are no mountains nearby or no hills that you can climb up to avoid the tsunami waves, you could always go up as a last case scenario, um, or as a last option. Sorry, you should go up into one of those kinds of buildings. Um, and so let me check to see if there's any new things from this earthquake. I keep going off course, and I apologize for that, but there's not really a lot to say about this earthquake. It seems like this earthquake was not as potentially catastrophic as we thought it would be, and that's good. But in in terms of the Philippines, you never know. Like, no offense, but you never know when an earthquake could be devastating or not. Because sometimes, you wouldn't expect an earthquake to be as devastating, but then they happen, and then you see such damage and stuff happening. And like, for example, Indonesia, I think a month ago or something, a 4.4 happened, and it caused $100 million in damage. It like collapsed like a few homes, and so that's what I mean basically. Just you never know, what could happen. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's any new updates about this earthquake, so I guess that's good. Yeah, there's not really any news about this earthquake, but if you want to know like about if you want to know about about what to do during earthquakes and other stuff like what I've been talking about in the past 10-15 minutes already, feel free to stick around because until I find a new update or something, I don't see anything that says like an update about the earthquake. So apologies. It's not me trying to yap. I'm not yapping on purpose. It's just that there's nothing really new about what happened. I'll try to see if there's anything new, but until then, yeah, excuse my yapping. But yeah, so I do know that a earthquake happened in the area about a year ago. In that same area where this 6.8 happened, it was I believe it was a 6.6. I'm sorry, 7.6 earthquake. It happened in December. It looks like, yeah. In terms of if this earthquake is related to that, it is possible. It did happen in the same area. It happened on the southern end of that rupture where that slab of rock ruptured. So is it possible that it's related to that? Maybe, but then again, that is an active part of the Philippines, like the eastern Philippines. That area is, or like can be very active. It just depends, Um, but yeah, let's see. Uh, like I said, the tsunamis in this part of the Philippines from this fault usually are not destructive either. So that's also a good thing. Like a 7.6, the 7.6 that happened back in December of 2023 in this area, it only created a 2-foot tsunami, so I guess that's good. It's also because it also depends on the type of fault that it happens on too, as well as, like I said in previous examples, like the Palu tsunami happened from underwater landslides and coastal landslides, but it really just depends. The 6.8 looks to be a little bit too deep to cause a tsunami, as well as too weak, and so I don't expect a tsunami. It probably didn't happen either way, so yeah, I would rule out a tsunami threat from this. Let's see. Let me look into the. Yeah, I don't see any updates from this earthquake so far. Even from Bislig, the city or the town that's closest to the epicenter, I don't really see any updates. I don't even see any major building damage, so that's really good. Yeah, basically, I would say that if there hasn't been any reports of major building damage, then I guess I could rule it out in the end. Yeah, I would rule it out by this point. Yeah, but like I said, if I yap about earthquakes, I'm sorry. Again, there's not really any news about this earthquake. It looks like it wasn't as potentially damaging as it could have been, so that's good. But yeah, if I yap too much, I'm sorry. But okay, I think David's back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so far, David, it looks like there hasn't been any major damage from this earthquake as we expected it to be,
That's
and
good.
yeah, I don't see anything even from the town that's closest to the epicenter. I don't see any major building damage from there, so I would basically rule it out at this point because obviously, if there was major damage, we would have obviously already seen it on Facebook or something. So it is possible there has been damage from this earthquake. I won't say it didn't happen, but um, in terms of like a big building collapsing or homes collapsing or something like that, yeah, I don't see anything like that. Um,
That's a good thing.
so yeah,
Um, so with that in mind, there's gonna be a little bit of change in programming. Uh, because I have to get these people ready for tomorrow. And for those who are watching in the American side, we will be covering what is now soon to be Tropical Storm Debbie as it begins its march towards Florida. So that's one thing. But we're going to switch the programming soon. We are going to be doing a automated live because clearly there has not been major damage, and clearly this is not posing a big threat to a human life, and that is a very good thing. Uh, if you do have any questions, comments, or concerns, send them here right now. Uh, I plan on beginning to do this in about 10 minutes. And yeah,
yeah. I did see one video that showed possibly very strong shaking. I did see one video, but from what I see, from what I could tell, I don't know how close this is to the epicenter, but from what I can tell, the shaking did seem to be very brief in terms of max intensity. It did seem to be a very brief few jolts. So maybe that's why there isn't, because obviously the bigger the earthquake, the longer it lasts, and the longer it lasts, obviously the more likelihood there is of big buildings coming down and a lot of damage and a lot of collapses and stuff. From what I can tell, yeah, there doesn't seem to be any big damage or collapses, so that's good.
yes.
For for a place where for a place that is very susceptible to such major disasters, uh, it's really good that this earthquake seemed to not have caused a lot of damage. It's really good. It's very good.
And by the way, I do want to say, for those who are wanting to stay in tune for coverage of this, because if this does turn out to be a foreshock, or if there's any big earthquake, significant earthquake that hits this area or anywhere, we will be live for it. So I do want to get this quickly out of the way. If you do want to see coverage on that, we also do typhoons, hurricanes, tornado outbreaks, severe weather, winter weather is another thing we're going to attempt to pursue. We do all sorts of disasters, all sorts of events, and I do want to uh, just say that if you do want to be in coverage for that, if you do want to tune into our coverage of that,
Oh, I
tomorrow
do have
we
news.
go ahead.
Um, I do have something. I don't know if this was already mentioned, but I mean, this was a tweet from an hour ago, but I don't know if this was mentioned. It seems like the JMA has released a sea level. I think the coloration is light blue, and I think that means that it is a sea level fluctuation warning for southern Japan slash the Ryukyu Islands slash the Ogasawara. I believe that's what those islands are called, the Ogasawara Islands. So there is a sea level fluctuation warning or advisory. I don't know which one it is for southern Japan. So there might be some sea level fluctuations in Japan, and if that's the case, then there might also be some water level changes in the Philippines as well. But considering that area doesn't really produce big tsunamis, I would say that it is pretty like it's not life-threatening. It's not very life-threatening or anything like that. I would advise just being away from, just not being in the water. Like, you don't have to evacuate if you're in the area. I wouldn't evacuate by now because if there was a big tsunami, it would have already hit by now. But I would advise to just not be in the water for the next several hours slash a day. I would just not be in the water. But yeah, I wouldn't say there's a life-threatening possibility of a tsunami happening. But like I said, sea level fluctuations. If they issued that for southern Japan, then the Philippines might see more significant fluctuations. But yeah, I would just stay out of the water for the next like 24 hours, honestly.
Okay, so that's news that I have not heard of, but well, there it is. So, Mindanao. Sorry, I'm updating these tickers. Let me do this really quick, and then so that is news. Uh, a sea level fluctuation advisory has been issued for southern Japan, including the Ryukyu Islands and I think portions of um, what's that other island called? Uh, I don't know if you can send me the tweet, but or wherever you got that from.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah,
southern Japan has is now under sea level fluctuation advisory, which pretty much means that for people who are in the coasts, think of it like rip currents, and
yeah.
think of it like Mateo tsunamis as well. Uh, they're not damaging, but they do pose a risk. They do pose a risk. Uh, think of it like rip currents. You want to stay out of the water when you can. Oh yeah, so let me just read you. Yeah, okay. So, sea level fluctuation advisories have been issued for the Ryukyu Islands. It's also been issued for Mikochi and this southernmost big island. I forgot what that's called, but
And I do want to tell to everyone who's currently watching, if it seems, again, if it seems really slow, we apologize. There's just not a lot of updates from this earthquake that we like what we were expecting. But we will try to be live for at least for the short term, at least for the next, like, I don't know, 20-ish minutes or something like that. Um, but yeah, from what we see, it looks like this earthquake did not cause any catastrophic impacts, which is good. So if it's slow, again, we're sorry. If you want to listen to us yap for the next 20 minutes, then feel free to. But I do want to say what I want to basically explain more about what David said earlier. Um, we do go live for basically every big event, so please do subscribe. This wasn't really the best event to cover, in my honest opinion, because there wasn't really a lot of. I mean, 2020 is always something else, but this wasn't really the best event to cover. But once stuff actually does get going and it really goes south, we do go like into depth and stuff like that. But yeah, please do subscribe for other kinds of disasters that may happen, and we will go live for those, and we will update everybody. Um,
I do just want to
once
say
stuff
to
gets
that
out.
point, by the way, thank you for that. To that point, we do attempt our best to go live for all disasters. Of course, a majority of us are living in the United States, which means that it's going to be a hell of a lot harder to cover European, well, not necessarily European, but uh, Asian disasters. But
Asian,
we do
yeah,
try our best.
yeah,
Uh, in terms of what we've done in the past, we have covered Noto Peninsula. We have covered Hurricane Beryl with 46 hours of coverage. You can view all of those; they're all public. 46 hours of coverage, both video and live coverage on Beryl, and that's one of our biggest achievements. We did Taiwan, and back in the early days, if you are one of the earlier folks before this whole rebrand happened, we did go live. We used to go live for. We also did lives for. What was it? Alaska and Turkey, Syria.
yeah.
But that is what we
And
do.
if a big disaster does happen, we will make sure to cover it extensively. Like, let's just say hypothetically, a magnitude 9 happens or a big tornado outbreak happens. We will cover that extensively, so no worries about that. Um, we really try. Like, our passion is to warn people and to update people on potentially catastrophic situations like that. And we do try to help everyone, and we do try to also answer any questions. So if anyone has any questions for us, leave them in the comments right now, or in future video. Or, I'm sorry, in future live streams. Just to say, just to say, yeah, we will answer any questions. Honestly, like I said, we try to be as helpful as we possibly can. So
Also, by the way, a question for the folks here. Do you guys like this new setup? Uh, I personally like it. I don't know if
yeah,
Mike
I
likes
do
it,
too.
but
Oh
uh,
yeah, no, I do.
yeah, this
It
is
looks it looks very nice. I think it looks very nice.
this is one of the more professional setups that I've made. You can go
Hi,
back to the
Miko.
you can go back to the hi Miko. You can go back to one of the older coverages like a again barrel, and you'll be able to see what the old setups used to look like. This is more of a minimalistic setup, but also it's a lot helpful for us because we're able to update headlines really quickly. And also it gives you guys more of what the news is and what the news looks like because of these headlines.
I do
So,
want to tell you. I do want to tell you, David. You misspelled fluctuation.
huh?
Flucation.
What?
Okay,
Oh my.
hold on. Let me just ping you for it in.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Fluctuation. Oh, that was what came up on the autocorrect. I don't know why it did that. Well, I apologize going in the blooper reel. Um, so yeah, sorry about that, folks.
Oh, and
Uh,
one more thing I do want to say for anyone who is curious, we are using a program called Global Quake. It
oh
is
yeah.
free to it is free to download. Make sure to download it. Amazing earthquake program. It will literally detect earthquakes in real time, at least for most earthquakes. And if you're in an earthquake zone, it will literally save your life. I'm not even joking. It will literally alert you seconds to even minutes before you receive any kind of shaking. So I would say please do download it. It is a really good program, and yeah, anyone who lives in an earthquake zone or anyone who just has a general interest um, in earthquakes or seismology should just download Global Quake. Uh, so again, it's Global Quake as one word. So yeah, if you're interested in earthquakes or just want to know about earthquakes happening in your area, please do go download that. And yeah,
Yeah. So yeah. By the way, we know the owners. Really cool guy. Um, I do have a special announcement. I am not gonna release it yet. But it does involve this program and it does involve a lot with this program and this channel. But yeah. So yeah, we do go live. On that topic again, we do go live for pretty much everything we can go live for. Obviously, we're gonna have standards. Obviously, we have standards on what our basis is to go live. But things like if you live in the United States, severe weather is a big thing, and we're beginning to enter to that point of severe weather. We're turning back in a few months. Uh, so we'll be live for those, especially if there's a tornado outbreak potential. Another thing that I will say is uh, peak hurricane season, folks. Hurricane season is coming up, and it's going to be, as I've said before, and I'll say it again. This hurricane season will be active. We've already gotten a snippet of it from Barrel. This hurricane season will be pretty active. It's just going to be pretty backlogged. And speaking of which, I think let me pretty much confirm this. Hold on. Speaking of which, so yeah, potential tropical cyclone 4. Now looking like it's going to be the next threat for us to cover. So please be on the lookout for that. But hold on, let me try to find something that'll work with this. Mm, I'm trying to look for something. Hold on. But with that being said, this has been. Hold on, is this the correct one? Wait. Okay. This has been a Disaster Central special report. Uh, folks, we will be.
Oh yeah, one more thing.
Yeah,
One
go
more
ahead.
thing I want to say. This Disaster Central doesn't only cover natural disasters specifically. We will also go live for just any catastrophic scenario. So that includes explosions, like something like the Beirut explosion happening again, or even like a gigantic terrorist attack if that were to ever happen. Just anything that involves a catastrophic scenario with damage to property, risk to life. Risk to life and property, just like anything like that, we will go live for it. So yeah, explosions, terrorist attacks. Will we go live for war even?
If it's really big, like something like Ukraine, or Israel, then yeah, we will go live for it. But
Yeah, so if anything that causes a risk to life or property happens, we will attempt to go live for that. So not just disasters, not just natural disasters, but also man-made disasters as well.
yes, so without further ado, this has been a Disaster Central special report. Thank you for tuning in. Mike, you're free to go. Thank you for all the viewers who are tuning in, who did tune in. We will continue coverage tomorrow with Beryl. But without further ado, this has been it. We'll speak soon. Goodbye.
Take care, guys. Bye.